Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I'm a 23-year-old competitive boulderer from Canada, currently living in Montreal. Welcome back to the COMPCLIMB training series, where I record most of my training, provide in-depth analysis of every session, and just chat about climbing with an emphasis on competition. So, in the last episode, we had basically like 3 back-to-back really strong feeling sessions. So going into these couple days of training, I was very interested to see if my body would just be sore and kind of wrecked from performing really well for 2 days. But man, this rest week that I took recently, for some reason was just such an effective rest week. I think it's the fact that it was 6 days long and I haven't actually had a rest week that long in a while. And my body is still feeling very fresh from it. And I actually wasn't even that tired going into these couple days of training. And the streak is continuing, actually. This session here we're going to have at Bloc ends up being another really good feeling session. Like I actually felt strong and I just felt like I was moving really well on the wall. So yeah, this is like the 4th session of climbing in a row, basically, that I will put at like an 8.5 out of 10 in terms of how I'm feeling. I'm really just trying to embrace this streak and really live in it because, like I was saying in the last episode, this is like these little mini streaks of good feeling are very few and far between, and I'm often complaining about not feeling good just from session to session, and the majority of sessions I would say that I feel sort of below average. So to have all of these really good feeling sessions in a row is just like extremely fun. So yeah, here we are doing our first session of bouldering at Bloc. We're getting on a really epic comp set right now. I was really excited to try this boulder. And it has like a very sick sequence at the beginning. Obviously, I couldn't tell if it was meant to be just a full-on campus paddle all the way to the last hold. But I think the way I did it was also maybe by design to kind of stop on the second hold and then do a paddle. And then at the end here, I'm like almost greasing off of this like volume. The black volume is pretty slippery, but I had like an edge in the session. Like I said, I was feeling really strong, so I was able to fight for the top of that boulder. Whereas on a more moderate feeling day of training, I definitely would have dropped the end of that one. So that was pretty satisfying. And then yeah, the theme with this session as well is that it is our slab and coordination day of training. So that last boulder would basically classify as a cordo boulder. You know, we had a bit of a paddle in there and a sort of lâché move. But yeah, we with this training program, we're kind of going back and forth between our unfocused sessions of bouldering and our style dedicated sessions of bouldering. So this day of training just has us doing slab and coordination in the morning and then boulder max force as session 2, which one we are going to be going to beta block for. So yeah, for this session, we're sticking to vert and coordination and slab. And there were a whole lot of these style of boulders up to try in Bloc. Since the last time we were climbing here, we were just sticking to those power boulders, right? And our session just kind of accidentally became a boulder max force session, which meant that I was left with a perfect style of boulders in the gym to try for this slab and coordination session. So let's take a look at this boulder. This one kind of classifies, it barely qualifies for the session. It's not really a slab and there's no element of coordination, but it's a pretty vert wall and it's extremely technical. So I also sort of allow myself to try these kinds of boulders in this session as well. So yeah, and then I also want to shout out this boulder. I think this one is probably my favorite in the gym right now. A very creative and well set boulder. And when I send it as well, I end up using all of the holds. It's a very cool sequence, how you have to like switch into underclinging these volumes, and especially at the end, there's a nice little trap. If you don't get your left foot up early enough, you can't actually go for the finish hold. And Maddie got caught by this trap off camera. But yeah, this sequence here where we go into this undercling and then we have to like deadlift this position, and you have to get your left foot up here. Otherwise, you're kind of stuck. And it's a very cool thumb sequence at the end. But anyway, I was like really vibing with this boulder, and I thought it was an absolute gem. And that one was set by Peo, who is the head setter here at Bloc. And then yeah, we had like a lot more slab and coordination boulders like to go around for the session. This one here, I was also excited to get on. Maddie was working on this one the other day, and she challenged me to try and flash it, but I could not quite get the flash of this one. It's obviously a very kind of complicated and tricky movement. To combine a paddle move and a lâcher is definitely quite a difficult thing to figure out on the fly. And I wouldn't say that either of those moves are necessarily my forte, so yeah, I couldn't quite follow through on the flash challenge. But I was able to do it second try, which was still quite surprising to me. I think my reach kind of helped me a bit, and I didn't have to do the second paddle move that Maddie had to do when she was working on this one. And this session was also like a pretty cool realization in terms of these flagship pros that I'm wearing. This is like, what, the third episode we've been climbing in these in? Maybe the fourth? But basically, these shoes are kind of perfectly broken in right now, in my opinion, which is crazy. Like, if this is my fourth day wearing them, and I'd say that right now they're in perfect comp condition. And the reason I say that I realized this today is because of the styles of boulders that we're getting on. Like when you were like putting it to the test on all these slabs and these volume smears and little footholds, I was really able to like test to see if I was feeling super comfortable in these shoes. And I very much was. And actually this boulder here is kind of like a really good example of it. This start position is pretty hard. Like the volume on the left is pretty slippery and shallow for your mantle. So it's a pretty intense starting position. But when my right foot just kind of lands on that starting volume foot, I can just feel that it's going nowhere, because these shoes are exceptional for smearing. And I can tell that they're in like the perfect smearing condition. And even on these little foothold jibs as well, I felt like especially because these shoes are soft, any like softer that these shoes would get, the ability to stand on these edges would start to deteriorate. So right now it's kind of like they're the perfect blend of soft and just stiff enough to perform pretty well on these smaller footholds. So anyway, it's good information, and if I ever have like a comp coming up last minute and I don't have time to break in shoes, like a pair of Tomos or something, I just have to break in these flagships and wear them for like 3 days, and then they're like perfectly comp ready, which is crazy. And yeah, it's also just because they're such a soft shoe. And anyway, let's pay attention to this pink boulder. So I said how the white V9 that we just did was probably my favorite boulder. This one is like a very close second, if not tied for first. This boulder is like a masterpiece of a slab. Very creative foot sequences. It's very aesthetic. And yeah, there's like a lot of room for interpretation as well. But there's also like no obvious beta breaks. I think this one is super cool, especially with this sort of like dynamic inside step through that is quite forced. And then you have the shadow match here, and then kind of like a superhero finish move, which is quite risky. And actually this last move is going to feature today's tip of the day. So for today's tip of the day, we're going to talk about how to optimize for stand-up moves on slab in the situation where we're standing up to go grab a hold that we don't know what it feels like. So in this situation, I have yet to feel the finish hold, and I obviously haven't attempted the last move of this boulder, so I don't know how good or bad this hold is. And obviously, I have to sort of risk it all and try and stick this finish move by doing this dynamic move. And it's very hard to stick these moves on your first attempt. Like, to do it on your second attempt is much, much easier after having the information to obviously feel what the finish hold is like, and then you can adjust sort of how much force you apply to the hold. But this tip of the day is actually going to be almost geared more towards trying to stick these moves on your first attempt, because this tip of the day will come less into play if you already know what the finish hold feels like, or if you've already tried the last move. So anyway, the tip of the day is when I go up to catch this finish hold, you can see that I'm hitting it with a slight bend in my arms. But the trick that I'm going to implement is I'm actually not going to engage my grip on this hold until my arm is sort of all the way straightened. So basically, I use this range of motion from a slight bend to even a bit of a disengaged shoulder as basically like a cushion and like a nice amount of force that I can slow this move down and catch the egg. And what this does is it basically, by not engaging my grip until I get here, it gets me like an extra second to feel how good this hold is. So if I were to go up, hit this hold, and just immediately start to engage my grip, like when my arm is in this bend position, and it's like worse than I think or better than I think, basically it gives me a higher probability to put the wrong amount of force on this finish hold or not to weight it really nicely. And so by letting myself not engage my grip until my arm is like all the way straightened, that gives my mind more information and I can better forcefully load this hold. And if it's slopey, I know I need to sort of load it gently and wait until I'm underneath it more to actually try and latch the hold. Whereas if I go up and immediately I kind of realize that it's in cut, then that's a different story. I can just try to hold on really hard. But anyway, by giving your mind that extra second to process how good or bad the hold is, it will better be able to determine how to apply your grip effectively. And this can even happen subconsciously. All your job is to do is to give your mind that extra second. So yeah, when you're standing up for a move on slab and you want to really try and stick it on your first try to not engage your grip until you kind of like give yourself as much time as possible before you actually engage your grip. But yeah, anyway, that slab was really, really well set and definitely in contention for my favorite boulder in the gym as well. And so at this point, this is kind of like the last boulder I have on my roster for the session. And I was watching Maddie try this one, and I feel like she was reinventing this boulder and making it like extremely hard. Like V8 slabs can definitely just absolutely stump me and I can't do them. But the way that Maddie was doing this boulder felt actually impossible. Like it's been a while since I felt like I could just not balance on a hold whatsoever. So she stood all the way up on this purple hold and sort of no hands this position and worked her left foot out to the chip. But I'm here and I'm just like, there's no way in heck I can balance no hands and get this foot over. So I feel like this can't be the sequence. Otherwise, it's a bit stiff for V8 because it just felt literally impossible for me. And then this sequence here feels like very natural as well and feels a bit more V8. So this was an example of me getting got by watching somebody else climb with like their own different beta. And I talk about this a lot actually, is I really always try to be conscious of this, especially because a lot of the competitions that I compete in have scramble format qualification rounds where you can watch your competitors climb. And if you're someone who is just too scared to try your own beta or just to try to intuit your own way on a boulder, it can really get you into trouble sometimes. Like if I was just to only try what I saw Maddie do, I'd probably never do this boulder. But I had to just take a second to say, okay, let's start from scratch and find my own way of doing this. And I found this sequence. And I always try to do this in scramble format competitions as well. And it can be quite scary to be the first person to try different beta or like break the norm, because oftentimes people will just try what they see in a scramble round qualification. So yeah, really, you just got to trust yourself, and chances are your body has beta that it will like, that you'll just prefer on your own. So you always gotta, definitely sometimes people will just find like a really good sequence for a boulder or something that's quite obvious that you just didn't see. But just always be conscious that you should always try to attempt your own beta if you're really struggling with a boulder. So yeah, you got to thread the line of trying your own sequence and also trying what you see. But yeah, that last V8 was also a really, really good slab boulder. And yeah, wrapped up a really good session at Bloc. Like I've been saying, I've been feeling really strong in these recent sessions, and I'm actually in like really good shape right now. And it's kind of funny, I think that I might be in even better shape than I was for some of the North American Cups. And I was in good shape for the Vail event and the Ottawa event. So it's crazy how this rest week kind of randomly was just really, really good on my body. And yeah, I kind of finished almost all the boulders off in Bloc, minus like one V10 with a lot of little crimps that I just didn't want to risk getting a split on. But it's actually been a while since I've been able to do that, like more or less finish off all the boulders in the gym. So that was a pretty fun feeling. And then yeah, anyway, you can see we are at Beta Bloc now for our Boulder Max 4 session. And this boulder here is an absolutely perfect boulder to get on for this session because this one is very physically intense and is absolute limit. We tried this boulder very, very briefly in the session that I had with Alex right before the Ottawa North American Cup. And it was like really hot on that day. So I think we probably put like 3 attempts on the first move of this boulder and then just determined that there was no chance that we could stick to this left hand. And luckily, and I said in that video too, I said, I gotta like pay attention to my weather app and find like a cool day to come try this boulder to really, really optimize for sticking this first move because it is so friction dependent. And luckily it was actually pretty cool in the gym today relative to how hot it's been in Montreal recently. And yeah, this boulder is an absolutely 5-star hard line up in Beta Bloc right now. Definitely the hardest boulder in the gym. And this one is set by Julian, who is one of the genius setters over at Beta Bloc. And yeah, he put this one up a little while ago. And I have just been, have been counting down the sessions since I could come back and try this boulder because it is just so epic. And it really revolves around this superhero first move. This move is actually quite anti-style, I would say. And at first, I thought it would just be impossible for me. I'm really not so good at sticking to these really bad slopers. So I had to find so much micro beta to learn how to be able to stick this first move. The biggest trick that I was finding for myself was to really just grab the left-hand sloper at the very edge, like the very tip of the hold, where the hold is at its most flat. And that was definitely helping me get a bit more purchase on it. And then here you can see I'm finally figuring out some beta in order to do this crazy ending sequence. Okay, actually I haven't found the good sequence here yet. I'm gonna find a bit of a sneaky toe hook to help go to that crimp at the end. But yeah, I'm kind of splicing in ground attempts and also trying to learn the ending at the same time. There's just so much to learn on this boulder that I knew the chances of sending it in one session were pretty low, but I was also feeling really, really strong on the session and I wanted to make use of that. Here you can see on that last try, I was like able to hold the one arm on this crimp, but not able to like find a good position off it. I was always trying to keep the left hand on the sloper, but I could also tell that I could hold the one arm on the crimp and maybe find my way through the sequence. So I was like, I had a plan A and a plan B basically for that move. And then here you can see, this is the attempt where I figure out the ending. I find this crazy backwards toe hook drop knee move that allows me to put enough pressure on this right hand sloper, which is quite bad. And then this last move is just crazy as well. Like obviously there's that little blocked crimp, but it just looks so bad that I just tried to jump for the finish. And the finish hold is pretty decent actually, but it's like a really greasy crimp. So it's definitely hard to hold when you're jumping with that much force. But anyway, let's check out this attempt. I finally stick this first move after 20 tries now or something. The adrenaline starts to kick in. I start getting really nervous and I enter my fight or flight mode. This move here is absolute limit from the start. I'm fighting really, really hard. And then I'm like, oh crap, I haven't really optimized or learned this last move super well. And so I try my hardest, but yeah, I kind of felt the finish hold on the last attempt where I was sussing out the end, but I didn't know it really, really well. So I didn't basically know how well to latch the finish hold. And we're gonna go try the ending on this next try here. And I learned that it's very, very important to get your pinky on this finish hold. I think I hit it with a 3-finger drag when we just dropped the finish. But yeah, I think honestly, this jump method, where we skip the blocked crimp, is probably the best. I just should have, I actually don't get my pinky on. I could have sworn I got my pinky on the finish there when I stuck it, but I guess I did still just hit it with 3. Anyway, I think it's more optimal to just jump for the end there. I just wasn't confident that I could actually stick the move on that ground attempt. And then I tried to try this boulder a few times, but I worked this thing for an hour and 10 minutes in a row. And so I was just getting really tired at this point, and I knew that my chance to send it was over and done with. I think that, especially because we learned so much on this boulder, I could probably come back and send it if I gave it another session of projecting. But I'm actually really in the mood to kind of ride the wave of the good comp form that I've been feeling and just try and stick to our classic sessions where we try a whole lot of variety of boulders. And the sessions where we just stick to one boulder and project the heck out of it, I'm going to try and keep very limited. So if we come back to Beta Block soon and this thing is still up, maybe I'll put 5 attempts max on it again if I'm feeling strong. But other than that, I'm kind of content with my last hold dropper. I think that was a good fight, and yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with the work I put in on that boulder. But anyway, let's jump into our next session of training. It should be a campus session at Beta Block. I haven't gone and done it yet, so let's jump into it now. And yes, it is indeed a campus session at Beta Block that we're going to be doing for this session today. And man, I am just so surprised, honestly. This is yet again another session where I was feeling super strong. And basically today, I was feeling strong, but I was definitely a bit tired and sore from putting such an intense fight on red. But let's say that I didn't try a limit boulder for an hour long yesterday, I would have been feeling super strong again today. So yeah, today was basically strong feeling with a bit of a fatigue mask over it. But yeah, I was definitely feeling pretty good on this session, which was especially nice because the idea with this session of campusing at Beta Block was to revisit that circuit of 5 boulders that I made up a few episodes ago when we had a campus session here coming right off of rest week. And in that session, I wasn't feeling so good because I had just done some traveling. So I was kind of just trying to forerun the campus boulders. And then today I knew that I would be able to properly test myself on this circuit of boulders. So I was quite psyched. And actually this boulder that I'm getting on here, I thought this move out to the purple hold that I just stuck was going to be way too hard on the first day that I was trying this boulder. But today I felt probably 4 times as good as I did on the last session we were trying it. And I was able to put that last one down in just a couple tries, which was pretty fun. And then we have a couple other campus boulders from the circuit that I was hopeful I could make a lot of progress on, especially this sort of shouldery move here. This boulder is pretty crazy and features some really funky campus moves. This move off the white definitely being the crux, but this move is actually just really, really hard, and I didn't feel much closer to sticking it than I did on the first session we were trying this one. And yeah, this one was definitely, when I was making it, it was definitely intentional that the moves ended up being this funky. I definitely always try to make strange campus movements and really test the limits of just how well I can sort of flop my way through a campus sequence and really learn and experiment with momentum as much as possible. And I find that I do this for the reason of I don't just train campus sessions in order for just like simple power training. Like, it is definitely an absolutely amazing way to train power. And anytime people will ask me like for advice on training, one of the first things I'll tell them is if you're at a good enough point in your climbing and you've been climbing for at least a couple years, definitely campusing on a spray wall is just one of the best ways to become a nice, powerful climber. So yeah, it is for power training for sure, but I'd say it's also maybe like 40% just for movement training and just to like learn and practice how to use your momentum in creative ways, in optimal ways. I think that campusing is actually just such a great teacher of momentum. And it's definitely where I get most of my practice. And it's not just for campus movements themselves that this momentum training comes in handy. Like, when I campus and I make these really funky movements, it helps me learn how to do paddle dynos more effectively. It helps me learn how to do all sorts of just basic coordination movements. Because a lot of the campus, the momentum involved in campusing through really bad holds and really strange movements effectively comes from your hips and actually comes from your lower body and isn't just all upper body momentum and coordination. So yeah, I'm very intentional about the style of movements that I try to make when I'm making campus boulders. And there's just so much value I find in campusing on a spray wall. It's great power training and it's really, really great movement training. And this is also a reason why I just never really train on a campus board, is because you just get so much more bang for your buck when you train campusing on a spray wall. And it's definitely like an aspect of my training that I swear by. So yeah, that ended up being like a pretty good session of campusing. I guess we just sent one boulder, but I definitely made some progress on some of the other ones. And then we just finish off the day with our deadlift that I've been training recently, and our side splits, and also doing some more hangboarding at home on our Clevo doorway. And yeah, in terms of like the finger injuries that I've been talking about, that I've been experiencing for the past little bit as well, they've definitely been getting better, and I'm able to increase the weight that I'm hangboarding with, which is quite reassuring. But anyway, yeah, that's the end of the episode. The streak of feeling strong is continuing. And yeah, I got a rest day tomorrow, and then I think we'll probably go climb at Bloc Hochelaga soon, because they just like fully reset their gym for an event they had. So look forward to that coming up. Insert catch a video here.